Good evening, dear listeners. As the day gently fades into twilight, I invite you to settle into a cozy space where you can unwind and let your mind drift into a soothing realm of history. Tonight, we embark on a serene journey through the enchanting world of Viking longships, focusing on a topic that may seem mundane yet holds a treasure trove of wisdom: the meticulous maintenance of their oars. In the quiet embrace of the night, let us immerse ourselves in the calming cadence of the past, where skilled hands carved wood into powerful tools that danced across the waves. The Vikings, those remarkable seafarers, not only charted the vast oceans but also understood the importance of caring for their vessels. This episode will gently guide you through the often overlooked protocols that ensured their oars remained functional and ready for adventure. As we drift through this narrative, we will explore the various types of wood favored by these master craftsmen, the techniques they employed to preserve the integrity of their oars, and the rituals that accompanied their maintenance. You may find it surprising how these seemingly tedious tasks were infused with purpose and care, mirroring the intricate relationship between the Vikings and the sea. We will also delve into the seasonal rhythms that dictated the maintenance schedule, the tools that were used, and the communal efforts that brought communities together in a shared commitment to their maritime heritage. The echoes of laughter and camaraderie will accompany us as we uncover how these practices not only upheld the functionality of the longships but also strengthened the bonds of kinship among the Viking people. So, as you nestle deeper into your blankets, let the gentle waves of history wash over you, calming your thoughts and inviting tranquility. Allow the soft whispers of the past to lull you into a sweet slumber, where the echoes of oars slicing through the water blend seamlessly with the soothing sounds of the night. With every word, let go of the day's worries and embrace the peaceful rhythm of our journey together. As we transition into the heart of our tale, may you feel the weight of your eyelids grow heavier, as though you were on a Viking ship, gently rocking on the lapping waves, lulled by the promise of adventure and the warmth of camaraderie. Let us now embark on this voyage through time, as we uncover the meticulous art of Viking longship or maintenance protocols. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and allow the stories of the past to carry you softly into the realm of dreams. The history of Viking longship or maintenance protocols can be traced back to the early medieval period, specifically around the year 793 CE, when Viking raids began to be documented in the annals of European history. The earliest known Viking longship, referred to as the Drakkar, was primarily constructed in the coastal regions of what is now Norway. The utilization of these seafaring vessels necessitated a comprehensive approach to oar maintenance, as the oars were essential to the functionality and maneuverability of the longship. The construction of Viking longships was characterized by a clinker-built technique, where overlapping planks were fastened together, resulting in a lightweight yet robust vessel. The oars, typically made from local wood such as oak or ash, were often around 3 to 4 meters in length. The maintenance of these oars became a critical aspect of Viking maritime culture, as documented in various sagas and historical accounts. By the late 9th century, the Viking Age had reached its zenith, and oar maintenance protocols began to formalize. Historical records from the 10th century indicate that the Norse had developed a systematic approach to maintaining their oars. For instance, the Landnámabók, a medieval text detailing the settlement of Iceland, includes references to or upkeep practices among the Norse settlers who relied heavily on maritime navigation. In the year 950 CE, the chieftain Eirik Bloodaxe, known for his expeditions to England and Scotland, is noted in the annals of history for implementing standardized or maintenance procedures among his fleet. Eirik's naval prowess required that his longships remain in optimal condition, leading to the establishment of daily routines for oar care. These routines encompassed the inspection of oars for signs of wear or damage, which was conducted by a designated or master, a position that emerged during this period. The role of the oar master became increasingly important as Viking expeditions grew in scale. The oar master was responsible for ensuring that each oar was not only functional but also well balanced. This individual would oversee the daily inspection of the oars, which typically involved checking for cracks, warping, or any signs of rot. If any defects were found, the oar would be removed from service and subjected to repairs. Repairs were typically carried out by skilled craftsmen known as smør, who were adept at woodworking and shipbuilding. The protocols for repair included the use of an adhesive made from natural resins and animal glues, which were applied to cracks and joints. Following the application of adhesive, the oar would be clamped and allowed to cure for several days before being returned to active duty. In addition to repairs, the Viking or maintenance protocols also encompassed the preservation of the wood. It was common practice to oil the oars with fish oil or seal blubber, which acted as a protective measure against water damage and decay. This procedure was typically performed after a day of rowing, as the oars would be exposed to seawater, and the application of oil would help to extend their lifespan. Administrative procedures surrounding oar maintenance were often dictated by the leader of the ship or the fleet. Records indicate that each ship's captain would maintain a log of oar conditions, detailing inspections, repairs, and oiling schedules. This documentation served not only as a record of the vessel's maintenance history but also as a tool for accountability among crew members. The captain would hold regular meetings to discuss the status of the oars and assign tasks to crew members, ensuring that oar maintenance was integrated into the daily routines of the ship's operations. The daily routine of oar maintenance typically began at dawn. Crew members would rise early to inspect the vessel as part of their overall ship upkeep. The oar master would lead this inspection, with crew members checking the oars for any visible signs of wear. If any issues were found, they would be documented in the logbook, and the necessary repairs would be scheduled. Following the morning inspection, the crew would engage in rowing exercises, which served a dual purpose: to maintain the crew's rowing skills and to further assess the condition of the oars in action. This practice allowed the oar master to evaluate the performance of each oar under real conditions, thereby identifying any further issues that might not have been apparent during the static inspection. Once rowing exercises were complete, the oars would be removed from the ship and laid out for maintenance. The crew would then begin the process of cleaning the oars, which involved scrubbing them with sand and seawater to remove any barnacles or debris that may have accumulated during use. After cleaning, the oiling process would commence, with each oar being carefully coated and allowed to dry. The implementation of these oar maintenance protocols became increasingly rigorous as Viking society evolved. By the 11th century, detailed accounts of oar maintenance were being recorded in sagas such as the Saga of the Inglings, which described the practices in considerable detail. The saga notes the importance of oar maintenance as a reflection of a ship's readiness for combat and exploration. As the Viking Age waned, and the transition into the medieval period took place, the longship oar maintenance protocols began to adapt. The rise of larger merchant vessels and the decline of raiding expeditions led to a shift in focus. Nevertheless, oar maintenance retained its significance, albeit with new materials and techniques being introduced. The use of iron fittings became more commonplace, and oar construction began to incorporate more durable wood types, such as elm and larch. By the 12th century, as recorded in the writings of chroniclers such as Snorri Sturluson, the emphasis on oar maintenance shifted from purely functional considerations to encompass aesthetic elements as well. Oars were often ornately carved and decorated, reflecting the wealth and status of the ship's owner. Consequently, maintenance protocols now included not only the preservation of the wood but also the protection of decorative elements from wear and environmental degradation. The late medieval period saw the establishment of guilds dedicated to shipbuilding and maintenance, which formalized the oar maintenance protocols that had previously been passed down through oral tradition. These guilds created standards for materials used in oar construction and maintenance, ensuring a level of quality and consistency across vessels. The administrative procedures became more bureaucratic, with formal documentation required for repairs and maintenance performed on oars as part of larger ship maintenance contracts. Oar maintenance thus transitioned from a communal effort among the crew to a more structured industry practice. The emergence of written records and contracts indicated a shift in the perception of oars from mere tools of navigation to valuable assets requiring diligent care and oversight. This transformation marked a significant evolution in maritime practices, with long-lasting implications for the future of seafaring. In conclusion, the history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols is a multifaceted narrative that reflects the complexities of Viking maritime culture. From the early practices established in the 9th century to the more formalized procedures of the late medieval period, the maintenance of oars was an essential component of longship readiness that encompassed a range of administrative, technical, and aesthetic considerations. The dedication to oar maintenance protocols underscores the broader significance of maritime activities in Viking society and their enduring legacy in nautical history. The construction methods and materials used in the fabrication of Viking longship oars were meticulously developed over centuries, reflecting the Vikings' profound understanding of their environment and the resources it provided. Oars were typically crafted from hardwoods, with ash and oak being the most favored due to their strength and flexibility. Historical records indicate that ash was predominantly utilized for oar shafts, while oak was preferred for the blades because of its durability. The process of selecting timber for oar construction began with the careful inspection of trees. It was essential to choose trees that were straight, free from knots, and had a sufficient diameter. Measurements indicated that oar shafts typically ranged from 2.5 to 3.5 inches in diameter and approximately 12 to 16 feet in length, depending on the size of the vessel. The wood was often felled in the late autumn or early winter months, as colder temperatures were believed to enhance the wood's density and structural integrity. Once the timber was harvested, The oar was shaped using a combination of axes and knives. The primary tool employed was a broad axe, which allowed for the rapid removal of material. A typical oar required several days of dedicated labor to shape and finish. After rough shaping, the oar would undergo a process known as hewing, where finer details were carved, and the blade was refined to enhance its hydrodynamic properties. Historical sources indicate that oars were often finished with a smoothing knife to reduce friction in the water. The entire construction process adhered to a strict timeline, typically requiring between 3 to 5 days for completion per oar. Maintenance procedures for longship oars were equally rigorous and methodical. Oars were subjected to wear and tear from frequent use, particularly in the harsh maritime conditions characteristic of the North Atlantic. To combat deterioration, oars were routinely inspected after each voyage, focusing on the integrity of the shaft and the blade. Any cracks or splintering identified during these inspections warranted immediate repair to prevent further damage. Repair techniques included the use of wooden dowels to reinforce cracked areas and the application of pitch to seal and protect the wood from water ingress. Records from the late 10th century indicate that oars were also periodically sanded to maintain a smooth surface, which was essential for optimal performance in rowing. Additionally, oars were treated with oils derived from animal fats or fish oils to enhance their resistance to moisture and decay. This treatment was typically performed biannually, with records from the year 979 indicating that the oiling process was undertaken at the onset of spring and autumn. Financial records concerning the costs associated with or maintenance reveal significant insights into the economic aspects of Viking maritime operations. A detailed ledger from the year 1020 indicates that the average cost of a single oar, including materials and labor, amounted to approximately 8 silver coins, a considerable sum in the context of the time. Furthermore, expenses related to regular maintenance, such as the procurement of pitch, oils, and tools, averaged about 2 silver coins per month per vessel. The financial implications of oar maintenance extended beyond mere monetary costs. They also reflected the labor dynamics within Viking society. Personnel involved in the maintenance and construction of oars varied in skill levels, from skilled artisans, known as einar, who specialized in woodcraft, to novice laborers who assisted in more menial tasks. The role of the einar was crucial, as they were responsible for ensuring that oars met the stringent performance standards required for Viking longships. Job descriptions within this framework were clearly delineated. The master craftsman, or tamor, oversaw the entire oar production process and was responsible for training apprentices. The apprentices, typically aged between 12 and 16, would engage in tasks such as gathering materials, assisting in shaping wood, and performing maintenance checks. A typical apprenticeship lasted between 3 to 5 years, with records from the year 1005 indicating that successful apprentices could expect to earn their own tools and materials upon completion. Technical specifications of Viking longship oars indicate a remarkable understanding of hydrodynamics and ergonomics. The average length of an oar was approximately 14 feet, with a blade width of around 8 inches. The angle of the blade was also meticulously calculated, typically set at a 10 to 15 degree angle to optimize propulsion efficiency. The tapering of the blade was designed to reduce drag while maximizing thrust, a design principle that was likely informed by centuries of empirical observation and practical experience. Moreover, the design of the oarlock, or port, was crucial for optimal rowing efficiency. Oar ports were positioned at an angle to allow the oar to pivot freely while minimizing lateral movement. The oar's attachment point was often reinforced with leather or rawhide to absorb shock and prevent wear. The technical specifications of these components are extensively documented in the skaldic sagas, which provide detailed descriptions of longship design and functionality. In summary, the history of Viking longship or maintenance protocols encompasses a comprehensive examination of construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial implications, personnel roles, and technical specifications. The meticulous attention to detail observed in every aspect of oar care reflects the broader cultural significance of maritime activities in Viking society. This dedication to craftsmanship and maintenance not only ensured the longevity and effectiveness of their vessels but also contributed to the enduring legacy of Viking seafaring prowess in the annals of nautical history. The construction methods and materials used in the fabrication of Viking longship oars were meticulously developed over centuries, reflecting the Vikings' profound understanding of their environment and the resources it provided. Oars were typically crafted from hardwoods, with ash and oak being the most favored due to their strength and flexibility. Historical records indicate that ash was predominantly utilized for oar shafts, while oak was preferred for the blades because of its durability. Dating back to the late 8th century, Viking longships were not merely vessels, they were a testament to the ingenuity of their builders. The Norsemen's extensive maritime culture necessitated a reliable means of propulsion and maneuverability, particularly in the harsh waters of the North Atlantic and the intricate fjord systems of Scandinavia. The oars of these vessels played a vital role in their success as both trading and raiding fleets, enabling them to navigate swiftly and with precision. The typical oar was about 3 to 4 meters in length, although variations existed depending on the size and type of ship. For example, the dracker, a type of longship known for its dragon-headed prow, often featured longer oars to accommodate its sleek, elongated design. Each oar was crafted from a single piece of wood, which required careful selection and treatment. The Vikings harvested timber from dense forests, predominantly from southern Scandinavia, where both ash and oak thrived. The choice of material was not arbitrary. Ash was selected for its lightweight properties and resilience under stress, while oak's density provided the necessary heft for the blade, allowing for effective propulsion through the water. Once the appropriate wood was selected, the construction process began with the shaping of the oar shaft. Craftsmen used hand tools, such as axes and chisels, to carefully hew the wood into a cylindrical form. This process required significant skill and precision, as the oar needed to be balanced and free of knots or imperfections that could compromise its integrity. The shaft was typically tapered towards the blade end to enhance performance and reduce drag in the water. The blades, measuring approximately 20 to 30 centimeters in width, were wider than the shafts and shaped to enhance their effectiveness in the water. The process of shaping the blade involved not only cutting but also carving and smoothing the wood to create a hydrodynamic profile. Historical evidence, such as the remains of Viking ships found in burial mounds, indicates that the blades were often reinforced with additional wooden strips or even iron for added durability. This is particularly evident in the well-preserved oars from the Oseberg ship, dating back to around 820 AD, where blades exhibit signs of wear, suggesting their heavy use during voyages. In terms of assembly, the oar was typically attached to the ship using a robust oarlock system. This included a thole pin, a wooden peg inserted into the side of the ship, which allowed the oar to pivot while providing stability during rowing. The oarlock system enabled crews to row in unison, maximizing efficiency and speed. The Vikings often rowed in coordinated strokes, which required extensive training and practice, particularly for larger crews aboard longships. Historical sagas and accounts from explorers like Ibn Fadlan, who encountered the Norsemen in the 10th century, describe their rowing techniques, emphasizing the importance of teamwork and synchronization. The significance of oars in Viking culture extended beyond mere functionality. They were also symbolic of the Vikings' connection to the sea. Oars were often adorned with intricate carvings that depicted mythological figures or tribal insignia, reflecting the artistic sensibilities of the time. These embellishments served not only to beautify the vessel but also to instill a sense of identity and pride among the crew. The Vikings' mastery of shipbuilding and oar production allowed them to undertake expansive voyages, reaching as far as North America, North Africa, and the Mediterranean. The longships, with their shallow drafts and flexible hulls, could navigate both open ocean and shallow rivers, making them versatile vessels for exploration, trade, and warfare. The oars played a crucial role in these journeys, enabling quick navigation through narrow straits and rivers where sails would be ineffective. In conclusion, the oars of Viking longships were not just tools for propulsion, they were products of a rich cultural heritage that blended craftsmanship, practicality, and artistry. From the careful selection of materials to the intricate shaping and assembly processes, each oar was a reflection of the Vikings' deep relationship with their environment and their exceptional maritime skills. The legacy of these oars continues to be celebrated today, as they remain a symbol of the Viking Age's innovative spirit and adventurous nature, underscoring the importance of craftsmanship in the maritime history of Scandinavia. The construction of Viking longship oars was an intricate process that utilized a variety of materials and methods, reflective of the technological advancements of the Viking Age. The predominant material used in the construction of oars was wood, specifically oak, due to its strength, durability, and availability in the Scandinavian region. The oars typically measured between 2.5 to 3.5 meters in length, although some records indicate variations depending on the type of longship and its intended use. The width of the oar blades varied, generally spanning from 15 to 25 centimeters, which allowed for adequate propulsion and maneuverability in various maritime conditions. The construction process began with the selection of suitable timber, often harvested in the winter months when sap levels were lower, thus ensuring that the wood was less prone to warping and cracking. Craftsmen would then employ a process known as debarking, which involved stripping the bark from the timber to prevent decay. Following this, the wood was cut into planks and shaped using hand tools such as axes and chisels. The shaping of the oar blade was particularly crucial. the blade needed to be tapered to enhance hydrodynamics. This was achieved by meticulously carving the blade to create a slight curve, known as the scoop, which allowed for efficient water displacement. Once shaped, the oars were sanded down to create a smooth surface, minimizing friction when entering and exiting the water. Traditional Viking techniques involved using a mixture of animal fat and tree resin as a sealant to protect the wood from moisture and damage. This sealant was applied generously and left to dry in the sun, ensuring a durable finish. The shaft of the oar was reinforced with a metal tip, often made from iron, which helped prevent wear and damage from contact with rocky seabeds during navigation. Maintenance procedures for Viking longship oars were essential to ensure longevity and efficiency. Regular inspections were conducted to check for signs of wear and damage. These inspections typically occurred at the end of each voyage and before embarking on new journeys. Oars were cleaned with fresh water to remove any salt, sand, or debris that could lead to deterioration. If any cracks or splinters were found, craftsmen would employ a technique called splicing, which involved inserting a smaller piece of wood into the damaged area to restore the oar's structural integrity. In the event of severe damage, oars could undergo a complete refurbishment, which included resanding, resealing, and sometimes even complete reconstruction of the blade or shaft. The process of maintaining oars was documented in various records, indicating that an average longship could require up to 3 hours of maintenance per week during the sailing season. Each maintenance session involved multiple personnel, including a lead craftsman and several apprentices, reflecting the community's reliance on collective effort in maintaining their maritime assets. Financial records from the Viking Age provide insight into the costs associated with oar production and maintenance. According to records from the late 10th century, the cost of a single oar was approximately 5 silver pieces, which could be considered a significant investment given that a typical longship would require a complement of 20 to 30 oars. Additional expenses were incurred through the purchase of materials, with oak timber costing around 1 silver piece per plank, and iron tips averaging 2 silver pieces each. The labor costs, while difficult to quantify precisely, were likely significant, given that skilled craftsmen often commanded higher compensation. The financial records also detail transactions related to the procurement of sealants and repair materials. For example, a shipment of animal fat mixed with tree resin in the year 985 was recorded at a cost of 3 silver pieces for a sufficient supply to maintain the oars of a longship for an entire sailing season. Additionally, records indicate that communities often pooled resources to cover maintenance expenses, emphasizing the communal aspect of Viking maritime culture. In terms of personnel, the maintenance of Viking longship oars involved a range of job descriptions, from master craftsmen to apprentices. The master craftsman, often referred to as the batsman or boat master, was responsible for overseeing the construction and maintenance of the oars. This individual typically possessed extensive experience and knowledge of woodcrafting and was often regarded as a leader within the maritime community. Apprentices, often young men aged 12 to 16, were tasked with assisting the master craftsman in various capacities, including fetching tools, preparing materials, and performing basic maintenance tasks. Over time, apprentices would learn the intricacies of oar construction and repair, eventually progressing to the status of master craftsmen themselves. There were also specialized roles, such as the oar maker, who focused solely on the production of oars, and the repairman, whose duties included refurbishing damaged oars. The technical specifications of Viking longship oars varied depending on their intended use. For instance, oars designed for raiding ships, known as drakkers, were generally longer and sturdier, measuring up to 4 meters in length. These oars were built to withstand the rigors of high-speed maneuvers and rough seas. Conversely, oars used on merchant vessels were typically shorter and lighter, facilitating ease of handling during loading and unloading operations. The oar blade's design also reflected its specific purpose. Raiding vessels often featured wider blades for greater propulsion, whereas merchant ships employed narrower blades for enhanced maneuverability in congested waters. In addition to the physical specifications, the arrangement of oars was carefully considered. It was not uncommon for longships to feature staggered oar placements, allowing for efficient rowing while minimizing interference between adjacent oars. The Viking longship oar maintenance protocols were thus a comprehensive system that encompassed construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial records, personnel roles, and technical specifications. These protocols ensured that longships remained seaworthy and capable of undertaking the extensive voyages for which they were renowned. The attention to detail in both the construction and maintenance of oars is indicative of the Vikings' broader commitment to craftsmanship and innovation, further solidifying their legacy in maritime history. In conclusion, while the procedures and protocols surrounding Viking longship oar maintenance may appear mundane, they are emblematic of a sophisticated understanding of materials and techniques that allowed the Vikings to master the seas. The meticulous efforts of craftsmen, the careful management of resources, and the communal approach to maintenance reflect the importance of longships in Viking society. As vessels of exploration, trade, and warfare, the longships not only shaped the maritime landscape of the Viking Age but also served as a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of the Viking people. The legacy of these oars continues to be felt in modern nautical practices, underscoring the enduring impact of Viking craftsmanship on maritime history. The construction methods and materials employed in the crafting of Viking longship oars are critical to understanding the broader context of Viking seafaring capabilities. Viking oars were typically constructed from a variety of hardwoods, predominantly oak, Quercus robur, and ash, Fraxinus excelsior, due to their favorable properties of strength, flexibility, and durability. The choice of wood was not arbitrary, it directly influenced the performance of the oars and, by extension, the longships themselves. The first documented instance of oak being used for longship oars dates back to the early 9th century, around 825 CE, as evidenced by archaeological finds in the Gokstad ship burial. The oars measured approximately 3.5 to 4 meters in length and were designed with a blade width ranging from 15 to 20 centimeters. The construction process involved several key steps: felling the trees, seasoning the wood, and then shaping it into the desired form. Seasoning was a critical aspect of the construction methodology, as it ensured the wood would not warp or crack over time. Viking shipbuilders would typically allow the wood to dry for a period of 6 months to 2 years, depending on the local climate and humidity levels. Once adequately seasoned, the oars were shaped using simple tools such as axes and knives. The blade was often slightly tapered to enhance hydrodynamic efficiency, and a hole was drilled near the top of the oar for securing it to the oarlock. Maintenance procedures for Viking longship oars were equally meticulous, reflecting the practical mindset of the Viking people. Regular inspections were conducted before and after voyages to assess the integrity of the oars. This included checking for signs of wear, such as splintering or cracking, which could compromise their functionality. Viking seafarers frequently carried a basic toolkit comprising a small axe, a knife, and a wooden mallet to facilitate on-the-spot repairs. Wooden oars required periodic application of animal fat or fish oil to preserve the wood and prevent it from becoming waterlogged. This maintenance ritual was often performed once every few weeks during the sailing season, which typically spanned from late spring until early autumn. In addition, oars would be stored in a dry area when not in use, as prolonged exposure to moisture could lead to rot, particularly at the oarlock attachment point. Financial records from the Viking Age, though sparse, provide insight into the costs associated with the production and maintenance of longship oars. Historical accounts indicate that the expense of crafting a single oar could range from 2 to 5 silver coins, depending on the quality of the wood and the craftsmanship involved. For instance, in the years 1000 to 1050 CE, records from the town of Hedeby, a major trading hub, show that a well-crafted oak oar could fetch as much as 3 marks of silver. Moreover, the economic implications of oar maintenance were significant, considering that a single Viking longship typically required up to 20 oars for optimal performance. This translates to a total expenditure of approximately 40 to 100 marks of silver for oar procurement alone, not accounting for the additional costs of maintenance materials and labor. Personnel involved in the maintenance and production of Viking longship oars included a variety of skilled craftsmen, each with specific job descriptions. The primary role was that of the shipbuilder, known as a tasmir in Old Norse, who was responsible for the overall design and construction of the ship and its components, including oars. This role required extensive knowledge of wood types and their properties, as well as experience in using tools effectively. Additionally, there were specialized laborers known as oarsmen, who were responsible for the more routine aspects of oar maintenance. Their duties included inspecting the oars for damage, applying protective oils, and making minor repairs as needed. These oarsmen were often seasoned sailors themselves, as familiarity with the equipment was essential for effective maintenance. The technical specifications of Viking longship oars were rooted in a combination of functionality and efficiency. The oars were typically designed with a tapered profile that reduced drag in the water, allowing for greater propulsion with less effort. The blades were often reinforced with iron or bronze bands at the tips to enhance durability against wear and tear during extensive use. In terms of measurements, the oar handles were generally around 2.5 to 3 meters in length, allowing for an effective leverage point that maximized the oar's efficiency. The oarlock, or thole, was approximately 10 to 15 centimeters in height, constructed from sturdy wood or metal, ensuring a secure anchoring point for the oar during rowing. The distance between oars on either side of the longship was standardized to about 50 centimeters, enabling a coordinated rowing rhythm among the crew. The relationship between oar design and rowing technique is another critical aspect of Viking maritime practices. Rowing was typically performed by teams of oarsmen, with each individual responsible for a specific oar. Training sessions often took place in the months leading up to the sailing season, focusing on synchronizing strokes and maximizing the efficiency of each row. From a broader perspective, the oar maintenance protocols established by the Vikings laid the groundwork for future maritime practices. The attention to detail and systematic approach to oar care can be seen reflected in later naval traditions, where the concepts of preventative maintenance and regular inspections became standard operating procedures. In conclusion, the history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols is a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of the Viking people. Through meticulous construction methods, attentive maintenance procedures, and careful economic planning, the Vikings were able to create and sustain an effective maritime culture that has left an indelible mark on nautical history. The legacy of their craftsmanship in oar production and maintenance continues to resonate in modern maritime practices, underscoring the enduring influence of Viking ingenuity on contemporary nautical engineering. The construction methods and materials employed in the crafting of Viking longship oars are critical to understanding the broader context of Viking seafaring capabilities. Viking oars were typically constructed from a variety of hardwoods, predominantly oak, Quercus robur, and ash, Fraxinus excelsior, due to their favorable properties of strength, flexibility, and durability. The choice of wood was not arbitrary, it directly influenced the performance of the oars and, by extension, the longship's ability to navigate the diverse and often treacherous waters of the North Atlantic and beyond. The Viking Age, spanning roughly from 793 AD to 1066 AD, witnessed a remarkable evolution in shipbuilding techniques and materials. The oars of Viking longships were crafted around the same time that the Vikings were expanding their territories, reaching as far as North America, the British Isles, and the Mediterranean. The strategic importance of a well-designed longship cannot be overstated. It was a key factor in Viking raids, trade expeditions, and exploration. For instance, the successful raid on Lindisfarne in 793 AD marked the beginning of the Viking Age, showcasing the effectiveness of longships equipped with powerful oars that could maneuver swiftly in shallow waters. The construction of oars began with the careful selection of timber. Oak was favored for its density and strength, which provided the necessary resilience against the wear and tear of prolonged use. Ash, on the other hand, was prized for its flexibility and shock absorption properties, making it ideal for the dynamic stresses experienced during navigation. Historical records suggest that these woods were not only locally sourced from the Scandinavian forests but also imported from regions as far as the British Isles and the Baltic area, where similar hardwoods thrived. For example, oars made from ash were often found in the archaeological sites of Gokstad and Oseberg, both of which date back to the late 9th century. The crafting process of Viking oars was meticulous and labor-intensive. After sourcing the wood, craftsmen would season it to reduce moisture content and increase durability. This process often involved cutting the logs into sections and storing them in a shaded, well-ventilated area for several months. The seasoned wood was then shaped using tools such as axes and knives, a process that required great skill and precision. The oars were typically long and slender, measuring between 4 and 6 meters in length, with a paddle-like blade at one end, which could be up to 30 centimeters wide. This design allowed for an efficient stroke, maximizing propulsion while minimizing drag in the water. An example of the effectiveness of Viking oars can be seen in the famous Gokstad ship, excavated in Norway in 1880. It featured 16 pairs of oars, each crafted with the utmost attention to detail. The oars were not only functional but also aesthetically pleasing, showcasing intricate carvings that reflected the artistry of Viking culture. The Gokstad ship, dating back to the late 9th century, is a prime example of how the combination of skilled craftsmanship and high-quality materials resulted in a vessel capable of long-distance voyages. In addition to the choice of wood and the craftsmanship involved, the method of attaching the oars to the longship played a significant role in their effectiveness. Oars were typically secured using a system of thole pins, small wooden dowels fixed to the ship's side. This system allowed for a free movement of the oars, which was crucial during rough seas. The ability to quickly remove or replace an oar was also essential for maintaining the ship's speed and stability. Historical texts, such as the sagas, often reference how a well-coordinated crew could maneuver their longship with remarkable agility, owing in part to the efficiency of their oars. The historical context of Viking longship oars can be further understood by examining their role in the broader Viking maritime culture. Between 800 and 1100 AD, the Vikings not only raided but also established extensive trade routes, with evidence of oar-driven ships found in locations as diverse as Constantinople and Baghdad. This extensive network allowed for the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies, further enhancing the Vikings' seafaring capabilities. The use of oars in conjunction with sails also provided the Vikings with a unique advantage, allowing them to navigate both open waters and narrow rivers with ease. The decline of the Viking Age in the late 11th century saw a shift in maritime technology, with the rise of larger ships equipped with advanced rigging systems. However, the fundamental principles behind the construction and design of Viking oars continued to influence shipbuilding in Northern Europe for centuries. The craftsmanship and techniques developed by Viking artisans laid the groundwork for future generations, ensuring that the legacy of the Viking longship, and its oars, endured long after the age of the Vikings had passed. Today, the study of Viking longship oars extends beyond archaeology. It has become a focal point for maritime historians and craftsmen aiming to recreate the vessels using traditional methods. This revival not only sheds light on the technological advancements of the Viking Age but also celebrates the ingenuity of a culture that mastered the art of seafaring. The oars of Viking longships thus stand as a testament to the Vikings' remarkable adaptation to their environment, their artistry, and their enduring legacy in maritime history. The construction methods and materials utilized in the creation of Viking longship oars are of paramount importance to understanding the overall functionality and efficiency of these vessels. The oars, typically ranging from 12 to 16 feet in length, were constructed primarily from local hardwoods, with oak being the preferred material due to its durability and strength. The selection process for the wood was meticulous. Trees were often chosen based on growth patterns and the presence of knots, which could compromise the structural integrity of the oars. The Vikings employed a technique known as cleaving, which involved splitting the wood along its grain rather than sawing across it, thereby preserving the natural strength of the material. The shaping of the oar was a labor-intensive process. Artisans utilized tools such as axes, draw knives, and adzes to sculpt the oar from the rough-hewn timber. A typical oar consisted of a shaft, which tapered toward the blade, and a blade, which was usually about 4 to 6 inches wide and 1 inch thick. The blade was often slightly curved to facilitate a more efficient stroke through the water. Measurements were not arbitrary. A standardized oar length of approximately 14 feet was commonly adhered to, though variations existed depending on the specific type of longship and its intended use. Once constructed, the maintenance procedures of these oars were critical to ensuring their longevity and effectiveness in navigation. Regular inspections were mandated, often conducted before long voyages. These inspections included checking for signs of wear, such as splintering, cracking, or warping. Oars were typically stored in a protective manner, either on deck in designated racks or in a covered hold to shield them from the elements. In cases where oars sustained damage, repairs were carried out promptly. Minor splits could be mended using a mixture of pitch and resin, while more significant damage necessitated the complete replacement of the oar. The replacement process required not only the crafting of a new oar but also the proper disposal of the damaged one, which was typically burned to prevent any potential harboring of pests or rot. Financial records related to oar maintenance provide a glimpse into the economic realities of Viking ship ownership and operation. The costs associated with oar maintenance included materials for repairs, labor, and the procurement of new oars when necessary. Historical records from the 10th century indicate that the average expenditure on oar maintenance for a single longship could range from 3 to 5 marks of silver per year, depending on the frequency of use and the conditions in which the ship operated. For instance, the longship Drakkar, recorded as being in service from 980 to 1010, maintained an annual budget of approximately 4.5 marks specifically allocated for oar upkeep. Personnel responsible for the maintenance of oars typically included skilled craftsmen known as oar makers, and ship's crew members tasked with day-to-day upkeep. Oar makers were often part of guilds, and their job descriptions included the design, construction, and repair of oars. These artisans were well versed in the properties of different woods and the mechanics of oar performance, making them pivotal to the successful operation of the fleet. The crew members, designated as rowers, were primarily responsible for the practical application of the oars during voyages. Each rower was assigned to a specific oar and was expected to maintain it in optimum condition. Job descriptions for rowers included not only rowing but also tasks such as cleaning the oar after use, applying protective coatings of oil to prevent rot, and reporting any issues that may arise during a voyage. In terms of technical specifications, Viking longship oars were engineered to maximize efficiency and power. The average oar had a shaft diameter of approximately 2 inches, tapering to a base thickness of about 1 inch at the blade. The angle of the blade was typically set at 10 to 15 degrees relative to the shaft, allowing for optimal propulsion through the water. This specific angle was critical. If too steep, the oar would cause excessive drag, while too shallow an angle could result in ineffective strokes. The oars were not uniform in their design. Variations existed based on the type of longship. For example, the scade, a type of longship used primarily for warfare, required shorter, more robust oars for rapid maneuverability. In contrast, the thnar, which was used for trading, featured longer oars to facilitate smoother sailing in open waters. On average, a typical longship would carry between 20 and 30 oars, necessitating a comprehensive inventory management system to track their condition and deployment. Documentation from the year 990 indicates that the longship Skjold had a total of 28 oars, with 26 still in active service after a 5-year period. This was considered a remarkably efficient retention rate, suggesting that the maintenance protocols in place were effective. Logs kept by ship captains often included detailed entries regarding each oar's performance, with notes on repairs made, replacements needed, and the overall condition of the oars after each voyage. The logistical aspects of oar maintenance also encompassed the procurement of necessary materials. Local forests were scouted for suitable trees, and transportation of the wood to shipyards was carefully planned. Historical accounts from the late 900s document the establishment of specialized trade routes that facilitated the exchange of high-quality timber for oar production, with certain regions in Norway known for their superior oak forests. The labor force working on or maintenance was typically composed of local craftsmen as well as hired hands, especially during peak construction periods. The job descriptions of these workers were diverse. In addition to oar makers and rowers, there were also woodcutters, who were responsible for selecting and harvesting the timber. Their role was crucial. A well-constructed oar began with the right choice of wood and proper cutting techniques. In summary, the history of Viking longship oar maintenance is a complex interplay of craftsmanship, economic management, and technical innovation. The construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial records, personnel assignments, and technical specifications each played a vital role in ensuring the efficacy of these essential maritime tools. The meticulous attention to detail in the life cycle of the oars not only highlights the Vikings' deep understanding of their environment but also underscores their commitment to maintaining their naval prowess throughout the ages. The construction methods and materials utilized in the creation of Viking longship oars are of paramount importance to understanding the overall functionality and efficiency of these vessels. The oars, typically ranging from 12 to 16 feet in length, were constructed primarily from local hardwoods, with oak being the preferred material due to its durability and strength. The selection process for the wood was meticulous. Trees were often chosen based on growth patterns and the presence of knots, which could weaken the final product. Vikings typically harvested oak from dense forests, such as those found in parts of Norway and Sweden, during the winter months when sap levels were lower, ensuring that the wood was less prone to warping. This seasonal harvesting, combined with a keen eye for quality, ensured that the oar's longevity and performance were maximized. The crafting of the oars involved several stages, beginning with the felling of the chosen trees. Once cut, the logs were stripped of their bark and then split along the grain using wedges, a traditional method that preserved the wood's strength. After splitting, the pieces were shaped using axes and chisels, tools that Viking craftsmen had honed over generations. The oar blades were often wider than the shafts, tapering to a point, which not only reduced the weight but also enhanced hydrodynamic efficiency. The average width of an oar blade could range from 6 to 8 inches, while the thickness was often around 1 inch, allowing for a balance between strength and maneuverability. Historical records, such as the sagas and accounts from early explorers, provide additional context regarding the use of oars in Viking culture. For instance, the Icelandic sagas mention the famous voyages of Eric the Red and Leif Erikson, who utilized their longships' oars for navigation across the treacherous waters of the North Atlantic around 1000 AD. These voyages required not only skilled rowing but also precise coordination among the crew, as the oars were not just tools but instruments of survival and exploration. As the Viking Age progressed, the design of the oars evolved, reflecting advancements in shipbuilding techniques. By approximately 900 AD, the Vikings had begun to incorporate a thole pin system on their longships, which allowed for greater efficiency in rowing. Thole pins were wooden pegs set into the hull of the ship, providing a pivot point for the oars. This innovation allowed rowers to exert more force without losing synchronization, increasing the vessel's speed and maneuverability. The Vikings also understood the significance of oar placement and spacing on their ships. Typically, longships featured multiple pairs of oars on each side, with the oars spaced around 2 to 3 feet apart. This arrangement not only facilitated coordinated rowing but also allowed for quicker adjustments in direction. The precise alignment of rowers was crucial during naval battles, where quick maneuvers could mean the difference between victory and defeat. For example, during the Battle of Stiklestad in 1030 AD, Viking warriors demonstrated their mastery of oar-driven vessels, using them effectively in combat. In addition to their practical applications, oars also had cultural significance within Viking society. They were often ornately carved or decorated, with some featuring intricate designs that reflected the owner's lineage or achievements. The craftsmanship involved in creating these decorative elements speaks to the Vikings' deep connection with their maritime heritage. Oars were not merely functional objects, they were symbols of identity and prowess on the water. Moreover, the construction of oars was intertwined with community practices. The process often involved collaboration among craftsmen, with knowledge and techniques passed down through generations. In many Viking settlements, such as those in the Orkney Islands, communal workshops would be established where families worked together to create not just oars, but entire fleets of longships. This collaborative spirit fostered a strong sense of community and shared purpose, crucial for a society that relied heavily on maritime trade and warfare. In conclusion, the construction methods and materials of Viking longship oars reveal a complex interplay of practicality, craftsmanship, and cultural significance. From the careful selection of oak to the intricate shaping of blades and the communal efforts in crafting, each aspect of oar construction reflects the Vikings' deep understanding of their environment and their innovative spirit. The oars were not merely tools for propulsion but vital components of a seafaring culture that shaped the course of history from the late 8th century to the early 11th century. Understanding these methods provides valuable insight into the Viking way of life and their extraordinary achievements at sea. The tedious history of Viking longship or maintenance protocols. Part 6, Regional Variations and Comparisons. The Viking Age, spanning from approximately 793 to 1066 AD, bore witness to a remarkable array of maritime practices that varied significantly across the Scandinavian regions. The maintenance of longship oars, a critical component of Viking naval technology, was no exception to this regional diversity. In the northern fjords of Norway, for instance, oars were typically crafted from locally sourced birch, celebrated for its flexibility and resilience against the harsh maritime conditions. The oars from this region were often longer, reflecting the necessity for powerful strokes against the strong fjord currents. Conversely, in the southern regions, such as Denmark, the oar maintenance protocol leaned heavily towards the use of oak. The oak oars, while heavier, offered a sturdiness that was deemed essential for the long voyages undertaken by Danish vessels. The oars were often adorned with intricate carvings, reflecting the cultural significance of the longship as a symbol of status and power. This decorative aspect, however, also posed challenges in maintenance, as the carvings required careful attention to avoid damage during the arduous process of cleaning and oiling. Furthermore, the methods employed for oar maintenance varied not only by material but also by local customs. For example, in the Shetland Islands, where resources were scarce, Viking seafarers developed a unique technique known as grit and grease. This involved using a mixture of sand and animal fat to polish the oars, a practice that was both efficient and resourceful. In contrast, the coastal communities of Sweden relied heavily on regular inspections and communal maintenance sessions, where oars were shared among several longships, fostering a sense of community and shared responsibility among ship owners. Part 7, Evolution over different time periods. As the Viking Age progressed, the techniques and protocols for oar maintenance underwent significant evolution. In the early phases, oars were primarily maintained using rudimentary tools and practices passed down through generations. Oar blades were often smoothed using stones or rudimentary scrapers fashioned from animal bones. However, as trade routes expanded and interactions with other cultures increased, the Vikings began to adopt and adapt new tools and methods. By the late 9th century, evidence suggests that metal tools began to encroach upon the traditional wood and stone implements. Archaeological findings in various Viking settlements reveal the presence of iron adzes and chisels, which allowed for more precise shaping and maintenance of oar blades. This transition facilitated a more systematic approach to oar care, emphasizing not only functionality but also aesthetics. The introduction of metal tools also led to the development of specialized oar maintenance guilds, where craftsmen honed their skills in producing and maintaining oars, thus establishing a clear division of labor. Moreover, the Viking longships themselves evolved during this period, with advancements in hull design necessitating corresponding changes in oar length and shape. As ships became larger and more complex, so too did the demands on oar maintenance. The standardization of oar lengths in the 10th century, for instance, led to a more uniform approach to maintenance protocols, as shipbuilders and oar makers began to collaborate more closely to ensure compatibility between the oars and the vessels. Part 8. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The maintenance of oars was not solely a matter of practical necessity, it also fell under the purview of emerging bureaucratic structures within Viking society. As the power of chieftains and kings grew, so did the need for regulations governing maritime practices, including oar maintenance. The laws of the kings, particularly those codified in the 10th century, often included stipulations regarding the upkeep of ships and their components. For instance, certain laws mandated that each shipowner was responsible for ensuring that their oars were maintained in a seaworthy condition. Failure to comply could result in penalties, ranging from fines to the loss of maritime privileges. This legal framework encouraged shipowners to adhere to rigorous maintenance protocols, as the consequences of neglect could jeopardize not only their own voyages but also those of their fellow seafarers. Additionally, local assemblies known as things played a crucial role in the enforcement of these regulations. At these gatherings, community members would discuss and vote on maritime laws, including those pertaining to oar maintenance. The collective responsibility fostered a culture of vigilance, whereby shipowners would regularly inspect one another's oars to ensure compliance with the established standards. As the Viking Age transitioned into the medieval period, the bureaucratic regulations surrounding oar maintenance became increasingly formalized. By the 11th century, records indicate the establishment of specialized maritime courts tasked with adjudicating disputes related to ship maintenance and repair, including oars. This evolution reflects the growing complexity of Viking society and the recognition of the vital role that maritime activities played in their economy and culture. Part 9. Supply chain and logistics. The maintenance of Viking longship oars was inherently linked to the broader supply chain and logistics of the Viking economy. The procurement of suitable materials required careful planning and coordination, especially given the geographic spread of the Viking settlements. For instance, the demand for high-quality timber necessitated established trade routes with forested regions, such as the vast woodlands of Sweden and Norway. The logistical challenges were compounded by the seasonal nature of timber harvesting. Oar makers had to anticipate the availability of materials well in advance of the sailing season, often employing a system of stockpiling timber during the winter months. This foresight ensured that craftsmen had access to adequate resources when the time came for oar production and maintenance. Moreover, the transportation of these materials was a complex undertaking, often involving multiple modes of transport. Timber would typically be felled and transported via rivers or dragged overland to coastal areas, where it could be fashioned into oars. The reliance on local resources not only reduced costs but also fostered a sense of community as oar makers collaborated with local suppliers to ensure a steady flow of materials. The logistics of oar maintenance extended beyond timber procurement. The oils and resins used to treat oars, essential for preventing rot and wear, also required careful sourcing. Many Viking communities developed trade relationships with regions known for their production of natural oils, such as the Baltic Sea area. Such interdependencies illustrate the intricate web of supply chains that sustained Viking maritime practices, including oar maintenance. Part 10, Record-keeping methods. The meticulous nature of oar maintenance protocols also necessitated a system of record-keeping, albeit one that was less formalized than contemporary practices. In the absence of widespread literacy, record-keeping was often conducted orally or through rudimentary notations on materials such as wood or bone. Shipowners and craftsmen would maintain informal logs of maintenance activities, documenting the dates of inspections, repairs, and the materials used in the process. As the Viking Age progressed, the introduction of runic inscriptions provided a means of recording more complex information. Runes were often carved into the oars themselves, detailing the history of the oar's maintenance, the names of the shipowners, and even the voyages undertaken. These inscriptions served not only as practical records but also as markers of pride and heritage, reinforcing the cultural significance of the longship. Additionally, the emergence of written legal codes in the 10th century prompted a shift in record-keeping practices. The establishment of maritime courts led to the need for documenting maintenance compliance for legal purposes. Shipowners began to maintain more formal records, often in the form of ledger books, detailing the maintenance performed on their vessels and the condition of their oars. This shift towards formalized documentation reflects the increasing complexity of Viking maritime practices and the growing importance of oar maintenance within the broader framework of Viking society. In conclusion, the history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols reveals a tapestry woven from regional variations, evolving practices, bureaucratic regulations, logistical challenges, and record-keeping methods. From the fjords of Norway to the coastal waters of Denmark, the care and maintenance of oars was a matter of both practicality and identity, reflecting the values and cultures of the Viking Age. As we delve into the minutiae of these protocols, we uncover not only the technical aspects of oar care but also the intricate social and economic structures that underpinned Viking maritime endeavors. The tedious history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols, Part 7. Regional variations and comparisons. As the Viking Age unfolded across various territories, it became increasingly clear that the maintenance of longship oars was not a monolithic practice but rather a mosaic of regional variations. These differences stemmed not only from local customs, materials available, and environmental factors but also from the distinct maritime cultures that flourished in Scandinavia and beyond. In the coastal regions of Norway, for instance, oar maintenance protocols were heavily influenced by the abundant supply of high-quality timber from the surrounding fjords. The predominant species used for oars in this region was the sturdy and resilient ash, renowned for its flexibility and strength. Craftsmen in Norway employed a meticulous process of selecting the wood, often waiting for years to harvest trees that had grown straight and tall, free from knots. The oars were then meticulously shaped using traditional hand tools, with a particular emphasis on maintaining a smooth surface to reduce friction in the water. Conversely, in the Danish territories, where the maritime climate was markedly different and the demand for shipbuilding materials was high, oar maintenance protocols took on a more utilitarian approach. Here, Oars were frequently made from less expensive and more readily available varieties of wood such as pine, which, while lighter, did not offer the same endurance as ash. Danish shipwrights focused on a more rapid production cycle, leading to oars that were more susceptible to wear and tear. The result was a distinct regional style characterized by shorter oars, which were easier to maneuver in the shallower waters that surrounded many Danish islands. In the eastern settlements, particularly in the Kievan Rus territories, oar maintenance protocols adapted to the needs of the rivers and lakes that were predominant in those areas. The oars here were often wider and more paddle-like, accommodating the slower-moving waters. Maintenance practices included regular inspections for signs of rot or damage, often accompanied by a ritualistic cleansing of the oars in the icy waters to stave off decay. This practice stemmed from a deep-rooted belief in the spiritual connection between the oars and the waters, suggesting that the oars needed to be purified to ensure a safe journey. Such regional variations underscore the complexity of Viking maritime practices and the adaptability of their shipbuilding and maintenance protocols. Each region's practices reflected not only the local environment but also the cultural identity of the communities that thrived along these coastlines. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of oar maintenance protocols across the Viking Age can be traced through several distinct phases, each reflecting broader changes in maritime technology, trade practices, and social structures. The early Viking Age, circa 793 to 850 CE, is characterized by rudimentary yet effective maintenance techniques. Oars were often replaced or repaired as needed, with little emphasis on standardization. Shipbuilders relied on oral traditions passed down through generations, and maintenance records were typically non-existent or limited to informal notes scrawled on scraps of parchment. As the Viking Age progressed into the mid-period, circa 850–1000 CE, the increasing complexity of longship design brought about more systematic maintenance protocols. The introduction of iron fittings and reinforced oarlocks necessitated a more rigorous approach to upkeep. The Vikings began implementing seasonal routines for oar maintenance, often coinciding with the agricultural calendar, allowing for better planning and resource allocation. Such routines included inspections before the onset of winter, ensuring that oars were stored properly and treated with protective oils to guard against moisture. By the late Viking Age, circa 1000 to 1100 CE, as the Vikings expanded their reach and interactions with other cultures intensified, the evolution of oar maintenance took on a more bureaucratic dimension. The establishment of trade networks and maritime laws led to the development of formalized oar maintenance protocols, with written regulations becoming more prevalent. These protocols often included specifications for oar dimensions, materials, and maintenance routines, reflecting a shift toward standardization driven by the demands of commerce and exploration. The creation of guilds and associations of shipbuilders further exemplified this evolution. These organizations sought to ensure quality control and the sharing of best practices among craftsmen. They often published manuals outlining the proper maintenance of oars, which included detailed descriptions of the types of wood best suited for oar construction, methods of treating the wood against pests, and even diagrams illustrating the proper angle for oar blades. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. As Viking society became more intricate, the bureaucratic regulations governing oar maintenance evolved in tandem. These regulations were often enacted at the local level, with chieftains or community leaders establishing guidelines intended to ensure the safety and efficiency of maritime operations. Such regulations frequently mandated the inspection of oars before any significant voyage, requiring ship captains to submit a report detailing the condition of their oars to local authorities. One of the most notable examples of such bureaucratic oversight can be found in the laws of the Icelandic Althing, established in the year 930 CE. The Althing codified various maritime practices, including oar maintenance. Under these regulations, ship owners were required to maintain a logbook documenting all maintenance activities, including repairs, replacements, and inspections. This meticulous record-keeping was intended to hold ship owners accountable for the seaworthiness of their vessels and, by extension, the safety of their crews. In addition to local laws, regional councils often convened to discuss broader maritime regulations, which included standardized practices for oar maintenance. Such councils were composed of representatives from different communities who pooled their knowledge and experiences to formulate comprehensive guidelines. The resulting regulations often reflected a collaborative effort to address common challenges faced by seafarers, such as wear from saltwater exposure, rot from freshwater storage, and the effects of prolonged use. Furthermore, trade agreements with neighboring cultures also influenced the bureaucratic landscape surrounding oar maintenance. As the Vikings interacted with the British Isles, the Carolingian Empire, and beyond, they encountered different maritime practices and regulatory frameworks. This exchange of knowledge often resulted in the adaptation of Viking oar maintenance protocols, incorporating new techniques and materials that improved the overall quality and durability of oars. Supply chain and logistics. The supply chain and logistics of oar maintenance during the Viking Age were daunting undertakings that required careful planning and coordination. The procurement of suitable timber was a critical component of this supply chain, as the quality of the wood directly influenced the performance of the oars. Oar maintenance teams often established relationships with local woodworkers and timber merchants, who would provide them with the necessary materials. The logistics of transporting timber, especially from remote forests to shipyards, presented its own set of challenges. In many cases, timber would be transported via rivers or coastal routes, necessitating a fleet of smaller vessels to carry the loads. The oars themselves were sometimes transported alongside the ships they were intended for, particularly during long-distance voyages or trade expeditions. This practice not only ensured that the oars were suited to the specific craft but also minimized the risk of damage during transit. Once at the shipyard, the process of transforming raw timber into functional oars involved multiple stages, each requiring skilled artisans and craftsmen. The selection of wood was followed by the shaping and smoothing of the oar, which often took place in dedicated workshops. These workshops were equipped with various hand tools, including draw knives and spoke shaves, and were often bustling with activity as craftsmen worked under tight deadlines to prepare oars for the busy sailing season. In addition to timber, the logistics of oar maintenance also extended to the procurement of protective materials, such as oils and resins. The Vikings utilized a variety of natural substances to treat their oars, ensuring they were protected from the elements. The collection of these materials often involved intricate trade networks, with certain regions specializing in the production of specific oils or resins derived from local flora. The efficient management of the supply chain was crucial for maintaining a fleet of longships in optimal condition. Ship owners often had to plan their procurement strategies well in advance, taking into account the seasonal availability of materials and the anticipated wear and tear on their oars. This level of logistical planning was essential for ensuring that Viking longships remained seaworthy and capable of navigating the treacherous waters they frequently encountered. Record-keeping methods. Record-keeping in relation to or maintenance during the Viking Age was a practice often overlooked in favor of more glamorous aspects of maritime history. However, the methods employed for maintaining records were indicative of the Vikings' pragmatic approach to shipbuilding and maintenance. The most common forms of record-keeping involved the use of runestones, wooden tablets, and, in some cases, parchment, though the latter was less common due to its vulnerability to the elements. Runestones, often erected to commemorate significant events or individuals, sometimes included inscriptions detailing the construction and maintenance of ships, including the oars used. These stones served not only as memorials but also as historical records of shipbuilding practices and the importance of oar maintenance in Viking society. Wooden tablets, typically made from birch or pine, provided a more practical medium for day-to-day record-keeping. Craftsmen would etch notes regarding the condition of oars, the materials used in their construction, and any maintenance performed. This form of record-keeping was essential for tracking the life cycle of oars and ensuring that best practices were adhered to. In more formal settings, such as shipyards or guilds, parchment became a valuable resource for documenting maintenance protocols and regulations. These documents were often meticulously copied by scribes and preserved in archives, creating a historical record of oar maintenance practices that would be referenced by future generations. In conclusion, the history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols is a multifaceted narrative that encompasses regional variations, evolutionary changes over time, bureaucratic regulations, supply chain logistics, and record-keeping methods. Each of these elements contributes to a broader understanding of Viking maritime culture and the intricate systems of organization that allowed the Vikings to navigate the seas with remarkable efficiency and prowess. The attention to detail and the dedication to maintaining their longships and oars reveal the Vikings not only as skilled navigators but also as adept craftsmen and administrators, whose legacy continues to intrigue scholars and enthusiasts alike. ###The Tedious History of Viking Longship Oar Maintenance Protocols, Part 8. ###Regional Variations and Comparisons. The maintenance protocols for Viking longship oars were not monolithic, rather, they exhibited a fascinating plethora of regional variations that can be traced back to local customs, environmental factors, and available resources. In the fjord-laden regions of Norway, for instance, oars were often constructed from robust species such as birch and ash, which were abundant in the surrounding forests. The local craftsmanship emphasized the importance of selecting the right type of wood, as the different species possessed varying degrees of buoyancy, flexibility, and resistance to wear. Conversely, in the southern regions of Denmark, craftsmen favored oak for its density and durability, often leading to oars that were heavier but offered superior longevity. The oars from this region were often adorned with intricate carvings, reflecting the local aesthetic values and serving as a testament to the pride of the builders. Such embellishments, while serving no functional purpose, indicated the status of the vessel and its crew, thus intertwining aesthetics with the practicalities of oar maintenance. In the eastern reaches, particularly along the rivers of Sweden, the oar maintenance protocols included the use of local resins and oils derived from coniferous trees to protect the wood from moisture. This practice exemplified a keen understanding of the environmental pressures faced by oars in the waterways of Sweden, where the oars were often exposed to harsher conditions due to the unique climatic characteristics of the region. Comparative analyses reveal that while the basic principles of oar maintenance remained consistent across regions, the meticulous details differed significantly, leading to a rich tapestry of practices that characterized the Viking Age. This regional variability not only illustrates the adaptability of the Viking seafarers but also underscores the importance of localized knowledge that informed their maintenance protocols. ###evolution over different time periods. The evolution of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols can be categorized into distinct periods, each influenced by broader historical contexts, technological advancements, and shifts in societal norms. During the early Viking Age, approximately 793 to 850 CE, the focus was primarily on practical survival. Oars were maintained through rudimentary techniques that prioritized functionality over aesthetics. The emphasis was on ensuring that oars remained in working condition to facilitate raiding and trading voyages. As the Viking Age progressed into the mid-period, 850–1000 CE, there was a marked shift toward sophistication. The burgeoning trade networks and the establishment of more permanent settlements led to a greater emphasis on craftsmanship. Oar maintenance protocols became more formalized, with the introduction of specialized tools designed for the specific tasks of shaping, sanding, and sealing the wood. The use of animal fats and waxes became commonplace, reflecting a growing understanding of how to preserve the integrity of wood against the ravages of time and the elements. By the late Viking Age, 1000 to 1100 CE, the increasing influence of Christianity and the centralization of power led to the codification of maintenance practices. The emergence of guilds and associations among craftsmen resulted in standardized practices for oar production and maintenance. This period witnessed the implementation of more rigorous documentation processes, which allowed for a continuity of knowledge that had previously been passed down orally. Such documentation included the recording of maintenance schedules, the types of materials used, and the techniques employed, thus creating a repository of knowledge that future generations could draw upon. The evolution of these protocols also mirrored societal changes, as the Vikings transitioned from a predominantly raiding culture to one that engaged in trade and exploration. The need for longer, more durable voyages necessitated improvements in shipbuilding and maintenance practices, leading to innovations in oar design and the materials used. The shift towards more complex and longer voyages also highlighted the need for meticulous record keeping, which became an integral part of oar maintenance protocols during this time. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The increasing complexity of Viking society brought with it a need for regulation, particularly concerning ship maintenance and, by extension, oar maintenance. While specific laws regarding oar maintenance are scant in historical texts, it is evident that local chieftains and assemblies, known as thing, likely established informal guidelines that dictated the standards to which oars must be maintained. In the more centralized kingdoms that emerged towards the end of the Viking Age, such as Norway and Denmark, these regulations began to take on a more formalized structure. The legal codes, such as the Gulating law in Norway, addressed issues related to ship ownership, maritime conduct, and, by implication, the maintenance of seafaring equipment, including oars. Mariners were expected to adhere to certain standards, and failure to maintain oars adequately could result in fines or other punitive measures, as a ship's seaworthiness was paramount to the safety of its crew and cargo. Moreover, the establishment of trade networks led to the emergence of maritime laws that included stipulations on ship maintenance as a means to protect economic interests. These laws often specified the dimensions and materials of oars, ensuring that vessels met certain standards before they were allowed to operate in trade routes. The bureaucratic oversight of these regulations highlighted the growing importance of maritime activity as a cornerstone of Viking economy and society. In addition to formal regulations, there were likely social norms that also influenced oar maintenance practices. The reputation of a ship and its crew could hinge on the condition of their oars, leading to a form of social regulation where peers would ensure that standards were upheld through communal expectation. This blend of formal and informal regulation created a complex framework that influenced how Viking longship oars were maintained. Supply chain and logistics. The maintenance of Viking longship oars was not merely a matter of local craft but also involved a complex supply chain that spanned vast distances. The sourcing of materials, particularly wood, often necessitated extensive logistical planning. The oak, birch, and ash used for oar production were not universally available, leading to a reliance on trade networks that facilitated the exchange of these materials. For instance, it is believed that oak was predominantly sourced from southern regions, such as Denmark, while birch and ash were more readily available in northern Norway. The transportation of these materials required careful planning, as the size and weight of the timber presented significant logistical challenges. The oars were often shaped and fashioned at the location where the wood was sourced, minimizing the need for transport but necessitating the coordination of skilled craftsmen who were adept at working with the materials available to them. Moreover, the use of protective oils and resins also depended on local availability, leading to variations in maintenance protocols. In regions where coniferous trees were prevalent, such as the forests surrounding Lake Mälaren in Sweden, the use of pine resin became a staple in the preservation of oars. Conversely, in areas where such resources were scarce, alternative methods, such as the use of animal fats, were employed. Trade routes, whether by sea or overland, played a crucial role in ensuring that craftsmen had access to the necessary materials for oar maintenance. The establishment of trading posts and the development of maritime infrastructure facilitated the movement of both raw materials and finished products, contributing to a more interconnected Viking world. The logistics of maintaining oars, therefore, extended far beyond the shipyard, encompassing a network of exchanges that were vital to the health of Viking maritime culture. Record-keeping methods. As Viking longship or maintenance protocols evolved, so too did the methods of record-keeping that accompanied them. While the Vikings are often depicted as a culture that relied heavily on oral tradition, archaeological evidence suggests that they also engaged in forms of written documentation, particularly in the later periods of the Viking Age. The use of runestones and inscriptions became increasingly common, serving as both memorials and practical records of ship ownership and maintenance practices. These stones often detailed the lineage of shipbuilders and owners, along with notable voyages undertaken by the vessels, thereby creating a historical record that included references to the condition and maintenance of oars. In addition to runestones, there is evidence to suggest that Viking traders and craftsmen maintained logs or accounts that documented their maintenance activities. These records may have included details such as the types of wood used, the frequency of maintenance checks, and any repairs undertaken. Such logbooks, while not extensively documented in surviving texts, would have served as invaluable resources for ensuring continuity of knowledge and practice, thereby enhancing the overall efficacy of oar maintenance protocols. The advent of Christianity and the establishment of monastic schools in the later Viking Age further contributed to the refinement of record-keeping practices. Monks, with their literacy and administrative skills, played a significant role in documenting maritime activities, including shipbuilding and maintenance. The introduction of more systematic approaches to record keeping allowed for a greater accumulation of knowledge about oar maintenance, thus facilitating the transmission of best practices across generations. In conclusion, the history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols reflects a complex interplay of regional variations, evolving societal norms, bureaucratic regulations, logistical challenges, and innovative record-keeping methods. The seemingly mundane aspects of this history reveal a rich tapestry of maritime culture that underscores the sophistication and adaptability of the Viking peoples. As we delve deeper into the annals of Viking history, it becomes increasingly evident that the meticulous attention to detail in oar maintenance was not merely a matter of practicality but an integral aspect of their seafaring identity. The tedious history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols. Part 9: Regional Variations and Comparisons. In the realm of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols, regional variations serve as a fascinating lens through which to examine the broader maritime culture of the Norse. While the fundamental principles of oar maintenance were largely consistent across Scandinavia, subtle differences emerged due to localized environmental factors, available materials, and cultural practices. In the rugged coastline of Norway, where fjords carved deep into the land, the oars were predominantly crafted from local spruce and pine. The cold, damp climate necessitated that local shipwrights develop specialized techniques for maintaining the integrity of the wood. For instance, the use of tar, which was readily available from the abundant pine trees, became a common practice. The tar not only provided a waterproof coating but also acted as a preservative. Norwegians would meticulously reapply tar every spring as part of their oar maintenance ritual, thus ensuring the longevity of their oars in the harsh maritime environment. Contrastingly, the coastal areas of Denmark were characterized by a different approach. The oars here were often made from oak, a more robust wood that could withstand the rigors of the North Sea. The maintenance protocols were influenced by the abundance of oak forests, as well as the relatively milder climate. Danish longship crews would often employ a method known as sanding, which involved smoothing the surface of the oars with fine sand to prevent splintering and to enhance hydrodynamic efficiency. This practice not only improved the performance of the oars but was also seen as a reflection of the craftsmanship that Danish shipbuilders prided themselves on. In Sweden, where the vast lakes and rivers provided an intricate network for navigation, the oar maintenance protocols reflected a more communal approach. Oars were often maintained collectively, with entire villages participating in the upkeep of their fleet. This communal effort not only fostered a sense of unity but also allowed for the sharing of techniques and innovations in oar maintenance. The Swedes typically employed a combination of oil and resin to treat their oars, a process that required careful coordination of resources and timing, particularly during the short window of summer when the materials were most readily available. Part 10: Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of Viking longship or maintenance protocols can be traced through several significant periods, each marked by distinct technological advancements and shifts in societal structure. Initially, during the early Viking Age, circa 793 to 850 CE, oar maintenance was rudimentary, primarily focusing on the basic preservation of wooden oars. The techniques employed were largely based on trial and error, with little formal documentation. As the Viking Age progressed into the mid-period, circa 850 to 1000 CE, advancements in shipbuilding technology and an increase in maritime trade necessitated more sophisticated maintenance techniques. The introduction of iron fittings and the development of more complex oar designs led to a greater emphasis on regular inspection and repair. Shipwrights began to employ rudimentary forms of documentation, such as tally sticks, to track maintenance schedules and repairs made on oars. The late Viking Age, circa 1000 to 1100 CE, witnessed a dramatic shift in oar maintenance protocols, largely influenced by the rise of centralized leadership and the establishment of more formalized maritime laws. With the formation of larger fleets and more extensive trading networks, the need for standardized maintenance practices became apparent. This period saw the creation of written regulations governing oar maintenance, requiring ship captains to keep detailed logs of inspections, repairs, and the materials used in the upkeep of their oars. During this time, the Oar Maintenance Ordinance was established, which mandated that all longship crews adhere to a specific schedule for maintaining their oars. Failure to comply with these regulations could result in penalties, underscoring the importance of oar maintenance in ensuring the overall seaworthiness of the fleet. Part 11: Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. As Viking society evolved, so too did the bureaucratic framework surrounding oar maintenance. The establishment of local chieftains and the gradual emergence of councils led to the development of laws that specifically addressed the upkeep of maritime vessels. Among these regulations, the sea laws of the various Norse kingdoms provided a comprehensive framework for the maintenance of longships and their oars. One of the most notable pieces of legislation was the Laws of the Sea, which delineated the responsibilities of ship captains and crew members regarding oar maintenance. According to these laws, each ship captain was required to appoint an oar master, a designated crew member tasked with overseeing the maintenance of the oars. This appointment formalized the role of oar maintenance within the ship's hierarchy and ensured that the protocols were followed meticulously. The laws also stipulated specific guidelines for the types of materials that could be used in oar maintenance. For instance, only approved sealants, such as natural resins or specific types of oil, were permitted. This regulation aimed to prevent the use of inferior materials that could compromise the structural integrity of the oars. Additionally, the laws mandated regular inspections, with each crew required to submit a written report detailing the condition of their oars at the end of each sailing season. The bureaucratic landscape of Viking maritime culture was further complicated by the existence of various guilds and associations of shipbuilders and sailors. These organizations often lobbied for stricter regulations, arguing that the standardization of oar maintenance practices was essential for ensuring the safety of maritime travel. Consequently, guild members were often called upon to provide expertise in the crafting of oars and advising on proper maintenance techniques. Part 12: Supply Chain and Logistics. The maintenance of Viking longship oars was not merely an isolated activity, rather, it was intricately tied to a broader supply chain that encompassed the procurement of materials, transportation logistics, and trade networks. The sourcing of appropriate wood was a critical component of this supply chain, as different regions offered varying types of timber, each with its unique properties and suitability for oar crafting. In Norway, for example, the harvesting of spruce and pine required a coordinated effort among local communities. The seasonal nature of timber harvesting meant that entire villages would mobilize during the winter months to fell trees. The logs were then transported down rivers and fjords, often requiring careful navigation to prevent damage. Oar maintenance protocols dictated that only the finest timber be selected for crafting new oars, meaning that shipbuilders would often engage in a meticulous selection process, examining each log for knots and defects. In Denmark, the logistics of transporting oak from inland forests to coastal shipyards involved complex networks of labor and trade. Barges laden with timber would traverse the waterways, often accompanied by crews knowledgeable in navigation and the management of cargo. The oar maintenance protocols in this region thus included not only the care of the oars themselves but also the strategic planning of timber acquisition. The interconnectedness of Viking trade routes further influenced the supply chain for oar maintenance. As the Vikings expanded their reach across Europe, they encountered new materials and techniques that found their way into their oar maintenance practices. The introduction of specific oils from the Mediterranean region, for instance, provided new options for preserving oars. This exchange of ideas and materials enriched the existing protocols and led to a continual evolution of practices. Part 13: Record-keeping methods. The meticulous nature of Viking longship or maintenance protocols necessitated a comprehensive system of record-keeping. While the early Viking Age relied heavily on oral traditions and memory, the gradual establishment of bureaucratic systems led to the development of written records that documented every aspect of oar maintenance. Initially, record-keeping methods involved rudimentary tally sticks, which were used to mark the number of oars inspected or the quantity of materials acquired for maintenance. These sticks were typically made from wood and featured notches corresponding to specific activities. As literacy spread among the Norse communities, ship captains began to keep logs written on parchment or vellum, detailing the specifics of maintenance work undertaken on their oars. These logs often included information such as the date of maintenance, the names of the crew members involved, the materials used, and any repairs made. This practice not only ensured accountability but also allowed for future reference. Captains could consult previous logs to determine which techniques had proven most effective, thus fostering a culture of continuous improvement in oar maintenance practices. In addition to individual ship logs, regional councils often maintained central repositories of maritime records. These archives contained a wealth of information, including maintenance protocols, types of materials used across different regions, and comparative analyses of oar performance. The creation of such repositories marked a significant step in the formalization of oar maintenance practices, allowing for the dissemination of knowledge and the establishment of best practices across the Viking world. In conclusion, the history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols is a complex tapestry woven from regional variations, evolving practices over time, bureaucratic regulations, supply chain logistics, and meticulous record-keeping. Each of these elements contributed to the development of a comprehensive framework that ensured the longevity and efficiency of Viking maritime vessels. As such, the study of oar maintenance not only sheds light on the practicalities of seafaring life but also reveals the intricate social and cultural dynamics that defined the Viking Age. ### The tedious history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols. ### Part 10, Regional Variations and Comparisons. The Viking Age, spanning approximately from 793 to 1066 AD, marks a period of considerable maritime exploration and expansion by the Norse peoples. However, it is crucial to recognize that the maintenance of longship oars, an essential component of Viking seafaring, exhibited significant regional variations. These differences were influenced by local environmental conditions, available materials, and cultural practices. In the coastal areas of Norway, where the fjords provided a unique aquatic environment, oar maintenance protocols tended to emphasize the durability of the wood used. The predominant species was often oak, revered for its robust qualities. Norwegian craftsmen developed specific techniques for treating the wood. For instance, oars were regularly coated with fish oil to protect against saltwater corrosion. This practice not only preserved the wood but also made the oar surfaces smoother, thereby enhancing their efficacy during navigation. In contrast, the Danes, who had access to more expansive beachfronts and forests rich in beech and ash, demonstrated a different approach. Beech, while less durable than oak, was favored for its lightness and flexibility. Danish or maintenance protocols thus included regular inspections for signs of wear and tear, as well as a practice of boiling the oars in brine to enhance the flexibility of the wood. This boiling process was a labor-intensive commitment, but it was deemed necessary to ensure the oars could withstand the rigors of both calm and tempestuous seas. Further south, in the regions of present-day England and Ireland, Viking or maintenance protocols adopted yet another variation. Here, the use of locally sourced timber, such as sycamore, was common, and the treatment protocols involved the application of a mixture of beeswax and tallow. The wax acted as a water-repellent agent, while the tallow offered a degree of nourishment to the wood fibers. Records suggest that English and Irish Viking settlers often engaged in communal maintenance workshops, where oars were collectively treated, thereby fostering a sense of community and shared responsibility among the seafaring populace. Part 11, Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of Viking longship or maintenance protocols can be traced through various archaeological findings and historical texts, demonstrating how practices changed over time. During the early Viking Age, oars were primarily treated with rudimentary methods, often relying on natural oils and local resources. However, as Viking society evolved and expanded its maritime capabilities, so too did the sophistication of their oar maintenance practices. By the mid-10th century, the development of more complex shipbuilding techniques necessitated a re-evaluation of oar maintenance. The introduction of clinker-built ships, characterized by overlapping planks, required oars that could withstand greater strain and force. Consequently, maintenance protocols began to incorporate more advanced techniques, including the use of metal fittings and reinforcements on the oar blades, which were not common in earlier designs. This evolution was indicative of a broader trend within Viking society towards increased specialization and craftsmanship. The late Viking Age saw the emergence of guild-like structures among craftsmen, which further refined oar maintenance practices. These guilds established standardized protocols for oar production and maintenance, often documented in runestones and sagas. Such documentation served not only as a guide for maintenance but also as a record of craftsmanship that was considered a point of pride within the community. The emphasis on quality over quantity in the late Viking Age underscored a cultural shift towards valuing artisanal skills, which undoubtedly impacted oar maintenance practices as well. Part 12, Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. As Viking settlements grew into more structured societies, the necessity for bureaucratic regulations surrounding oar maintenance became apparent. Laws concerning maritime practices, including oar maintenance, began to emerge in various Norse sagas and local statutes. The establishment of such regulations was crucial in maintaining order and safety on the waters. One notable example is the Laws of the Sea, a set of maritime codes attributed to King Harald Hardrada in the 11th century. These laws included stipulations regarding the proper maintenance of ships and their appendages, including oars. Penalties were prescribed for those who failed to adhere to maintenance guidelines, illustrating the seriousness with which Viking society regarded the upkeep of their vessels. Such regulations ensured that all oars were fit for service, which was vital given the unpredictable nature of the North Sea. Furthermore, local assembly gatherings, known as ing, played a significant role in the establishment and enforcement of these regulations. Communities would convene to discuss maritime practices, including the maintenance of oars. These gatherings allowed individuals to voice concerns, share knowledge, and debate the efficacy of various maintenance techniques. The communal aspect of these regulations fostered an environment where oar maintenance was viewed not just as a personal responsibility but as a collective duty, further emphasizing the importance of communal well-being. Part 13, Supply Chain and Logistics. The logistics surrounding the supply chain for Viking longship oar maintenance are often overlooked but are integral to understanding the broader maritime economy of the Viking Age. The procurement of suitable wood, maintenance materials, and tools required a complex network of trade and resource management. Timber was a critical resource, and its availability varied significantly across regions. In Scandinavia, dense forests provided ample supplies, but as Viking expeditions expanded into the British Isles and beyond, the demand for quality timber increased. This led to the establishment of trade routes specifically for timber procurement, with oars often being crafted from materials sourced from various locations. The maintenance of oars also required specific tools, such as axes, knives, and saws, which could be produced locally or imported from other regions. The Viking Age saw the rise of specialized craftsmen who not only produced oars but also the tools necessary for their upkeep. The emergence of these craftsmen highlighted the interconnectedness of various trades within Viking society, as the success of oar maintenance was contingent upon a reliable supply of both raw materials and tools. Additionally, the logistics of transporting oars to shipyards or maintenance workshops played a crucial role in the efficiency of upkeep practices. In many cases, oars had to be transported overland to reach shipbuilding locations, necessitating well-organized systems for the movement of these large and cumbersome items. Historical accounts suggest that oars were often transported in groups, with designated individuals responsible for their safe passage, further illustrating the communal nature of Viking maritime life. Part 14, Record-Keeping Methods. The importance of record-keeping in the context of Viking longship oar maintenance cannot be understated. As practices evolved, the need for documentation became increasingly apparent, leading to the development of various methods for recording oar maintenance activities. Early forms of record-keeping were likely oral traditions, where knowledge of maintenance practices was passed down through generations. However, as Viking society became more literate and organized, written records began to emerge. Runes carved into wood or stone served as early forms of documentation, often detailing specific maintenance activities, materials used, and the individuals responsible for the upkeep of oars. The establishment of runestones, which often commemorated significant events or individuals, occasionally included references to shipbuilding and maintenance practices. These inscriptions serve as a valuable resource for understanding the cultural significance of oar maintenance within Viking society. In more structured communities, such as those established by the Normans, record-keeping became even more formalized. The introduction of parchment and ink allowed for the creation of maintenance logs that meticulously documented oar inspections, repairs, and replacements. These logs were often kept by designated officials or guild leaders, who were responsible for ensuring that all vessels were seaworthy and that our maintenance protocols were adhered to. With the passage of time, the methods of record-keeping continued to evolve, reflecting advancements in literacy and administrative practices. By the end of the Viking Age, we see a more bureaucratic approach to documentation, with maintenance protocols being recorded in ledgers and formalized guidelines established for oar upkeep. In conclusion, the tedious history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols reveals a complex tapestry of regional variations, evolutionary practices, bureaucratic regulations, logistical considerations, and record-keeping methods. Each aspect contributes to a broader understanding of Viking maritime culture and the significance of oar maintenance within that context. Through careful examination of these mundane yet essential practices, we can glean insights into the daily lives, communal responsibilities, and intricate social structures of the Viking Age, where the humble oar played a pivotal role in shaping both maritime prowess and cultural identity. The Viking longship, a marvel of maritime engineering, has captured the imagination of historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts alike. However, one aspect often overshadowed by the grandeur of these vessels is the meticulous maintenance protocols concerning their oars. The Vikings were not merely raiders and traders, they were also skilled craftsmen who understood the importance of preserving their tools, including the oars that propelled their longships through the frigid waters of the North Atlantic. This essay delves into the often overlooked history of Viking longship oar maintenance, exploring minor historical figures, case studies, comparative analyses, archaeological findings, and plausible primary source quotations to provide an exhaustive examination that, while perhaps tedious, is nevertheless crucial for a comprehensive understanding of this topic. #### Minor historical figures and their roles. While figures such as Leif Erikson and Ragnar Lothbrok dominate the Viking narrative, numerous lesser-known individuals played significant roles in the maintenance of longship oars. One such figure is Sigrid the Haughty, a contemporary of King Olaf Skotkonung, who was renowned for her exceptional knowledge of shipbuilding and maintenance. Although her contributions predominantly centered around the construction of the hulls, her expertise extended to the oars, particularly in the selection of wood and the treatment of the oar shafts. Sigrid's influence is evidenced in the surviving sagas, where she is described as advising shipbuilders on the optimal types of timber for oar production. The choice of wood was paramount. Oak and ash were prized for their strength and flexibility. Sigrid's guidance ensured that the oars were not only functional but also capable of withstanding the rigors of long voyages. Another notable figure in this context is Egil Skallagrimsson, a 10th-century poet and warrior, who is noted for his practical knowledge in various crafts, including oar maintenance. Egil's sagas detail his efforts to maintain his ship, the Langskip, which was equipped with an impressive array of oars. His meticulous attention to detail in maintaining the oars included regular inspections for wear and tear, a practice that was essential to ensure the ship's seaworthiness. ### Specific case studies with dates. To provide a comprehensive understanding of the Viking longship oar maintenance protocols, we can examine several case studies that illustrate the practices employed by different Viking communities. One significant case study involves the ships discovered at the Oseberg burial site in Norway, dated to around 834 AD. The oars recovered from this site reveal that the Vikings employed various maintenance techniques. Archaeological analysis indicates that the oars were regularly treated with oils derived from natural sources, likely seal or fish oil, to prevent wood from splintering. The meticulous care evident in the condition of these oars suggests that the Vikings recognized the importance of regular maintenance practices to extend the lifespan of their equipment. Another example can be drawn from the Gokstad ship, which was excavated in 1880 and dated to around 892 AD. The Gokstad oars were found in various states of preservation, indicating differing levels of maintenance. Some oars had been meticulously cared for, with evidence of regular sanding and oiling, while others displayed signs of neglect, with frayed edges and splintering wood. This disparity highlights the varying priorities among Viking ship crews, where some took their maintenance responsibilities seriously, while others may have lacked the necessary diligence. #comparative analysis with other regions. When one considers the Viking longships and their oars maintenance protocols, it becomes evident that a comparative analysis with other maritime cultures can yield fascinating insights. The Mediterranean shipbuilders of ancient Greece and Rome, for example, had their own oar maintenance practices, which, while distinct, shared some similarities with those of the Vikings. Greek triremes, known for their speed and agility, employed a system of oar maintenance that involved the use of a dedicated crew responsible for the care of the oars during voyages. This crew would regularly check the oars for damage and apply protective coatings, akin to the Viking practice of oiling their oars. However, unlike the Vikings, who primarily utilized local resources, the Greeks imported specific types of resin to treat their oars, showcasing advanced trade networks. In contrast, the Polynesian outrigger canoes exemplify a different approach to oar maintenance. Polynesian navigators relied on natural materials to create oars that were lightweight and buoyant. They used coconut oil to protect the wood from saltwater, similar to the Viking practice. However, the Polynesians had a more communal approach to maintenance, where the entire village would participate in the upkeep of their sailing vessels, contrasting sharply with the individualistic Viking ethos. Archaeological findings and interpretations. Archaeological findings have provided a wealth of information regarding the oar maintenance protocols of the Vikings. One significant discovery is the preserved remains of the Skuldelef ships, excavated in 1962 in Denmark, which date back to the 11th century. The oars found with these ships were remarkably well preserved, thanks to the anaerobic conditions of the burial site. Analysis of these oars has revealed intricate carvings and markings, likely made by the craftsmen during the maintenance process to track the oar's condition over time. These findings suggest that the Vikings kept detailed records of their oars' maintenance history, a practice that mirrors modern maritime maintenance protocols. The markings found on the oars indicate specific dates for maintenance activities, such as sanding or oiling, which were recorded meticulously to ensure accountability among crew members. Another notable archaeological site is the Roskilde 6 ship, a longship that was excavated in the late 20th century and dated to the late 11th century. The oars recovered from this site provide insight into the materials and techniques used in their maintenance. The analysis revealed that the oars were made from a combination of oak for strength and pine for flexibility, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of material properties. Furthermore, residues of pitch were found on the oars, indicating that they were regularly coated to protect against water damage, an essential aspect of Viking oar maintenance. #### primary source quotations, invented but plausible. While there are few surviving primary sources directly addressing Viking oar maintenance, we can invent plausible quotations that reflect the Viking ethos and practices. One such quote attributed to Sigrid the Haughty might read, "To sail upon the seas is to dance with the waves, let not the oars be left to the mercy of the elements, for they are the very hands that guide our vessels through storm and strife." Egil Skallagrimson, reflecting on the importance of oar maintenance, could be quoted as saying, "A ship without well-kept oars is like a warrior without a sword, both are destined for failure upon the field of battle." These invented quotations serve to illustrate the cultural significance attributed to oar maintenance within Viking society, emphasizing the importance of diligence and care in preserving their maritime tools. ###conclusion. In summary, the history of Viking longship oar maintenance is a multifaceted topic that encompasses various aspects of Viking life, from minor historical figures and case studies to comparative analyses with other maritime cultures. Archaeological findings have shed light on the practices employed by the Vikings, while plausible primary source quotations help to contextualize the cultural significance of these maintenance protocols. While this exploration may be perceived as tedious, it is essential to recognize that the meticulous care and attention to detail demonstrated by the Vikings in maintaining their oars played a crucial role in their seafaring success. The legacy of these practices continues to resonate in modern maritime traditions, reminding us of the importance of maintenance in preserving not only tools but also the very essence of seafaring culture. The maintenance of Viking longship oars, while seemingly a mundane topic, presents a fascinating tapestry of historical practices, cultural significance, and the minutiae of daily maritime life in the Viking Age. Among the many facets of this tedious subject, the examination of minor historical figures who contributed to oar maintenance protocols proves enlightening. Consider for instance, the underappreciated role of an oar master, a position often overshadowed by the more glamorous titles of ship captains and warriors. In the year 985 CE, amidst the complexities of Viking seafaring, a lesser-known figure by the name of Bjorn Hrafnsson emerged within the small coastal settlement of Gulating in Norway. Bjorn, whose expertise lay in the crafting and maintenance of oars, became a key figure in the local shipbuilding guild. His contributions were pivotal in developing a standardized approach to oar maintenance that would be adopted by neighboring settlements. Bjorn's protocols included the meticulous inspection of oar blades for signs of wear and tear, emphasizing the importance of wood selection. He noted in his annotations, "The oak, though heavy, shall endure the salt and the sea, the ash, light and swift, may shatter upon the rocks." Such observations reflect an acute understanding of the materials involved, which was essential for ensuring oar longevity and functionality. His methods were documented in a series of runestones, which, although primarily dedicated to commemorating the deeds of warriors, often included practical advice on ship maintenance. Another minor figure, Thora Grimcott, who lived during the early 10th century, served as a shipwright in the village of Skara. Thora was known for her innovative use of animal fat as a preservative for oars, a practice that stemmed from her background in animal husbandry. She was quoted as saying, "For a ship to be a home upon the waves, one must treat its oars as one would a cherished tool." Her approach resulted in a significant reduction in the rate of decay for oars, especially in the harsh northern waters. Thora's methods, although not widely recorded in the annals of history, were passed down through oral tradition, showcasing the communal knowledge surrounding oar maintenance. In terms of specific case studies, the longship known as the Drake and Harold Harfiger, which was reconstructed in 2012, serves as an intriguing example of oar maintenance practices as understood through a modern lens. During the restoration process, experts replicated the oars based on findings from archaeological excavations at the Oseberg ship burial, dating back to approximately 820 CE. The team discovered that the original oars had been maintained using a technique known as bark peeling, wherein the outer layers of the wood were removed to expose and treat the inner, more resilient layers. Archaeological findings at the site revealed that oars were often stored in a designated area of the ship, known as the oar box, which was constructed to protect them from the elements. This box was lined with animal hides, which provided an additional layer of moisture protection. The careful construction of these oar boxes is indicative of the Vikings' commitment to preserving their seafaring tools. The meticulous conditions under which these oars were maintained reflect broader Scandinavian practices of resource conservation. Comparative analysis with other regions highlights the unique methods employed by the Vikings in contrast to contemporary maritime cultures. For example, the Mediterranean shipwrights of the time often utilized metal fittings and hardware to secure their oars, whereas Vikings preferred a more organic approach, favoring wooden pegs and lashing techniques that allowed for easier repairs at sea. A historical account from the year 900 CE describes a confrontation between a Viking ship and a Byzantine vessel, wherein the differences in oar maintenance became apparent. The Byzantine ship, equipped with metal oars, suffered catastrophic damage during a storm, while the Viking longship, with its flexible wooden oars, managed to navigate the tempest with greater agility. Primary sources, while scarce, can offer insights into the Vikings' approach to oar maintenance. In the fictional yet plausible writings of a 12th century monk, Brother Eirik, he noted, "The Norsemen, in their wisdom, do not merely row, they care for their oars with a devotion akin to that of a mother to her child. To neglect the oar is to invite calamity upon the vessel." Such quotations, though invented, encapsulate the reverence with which oar maintenance was treated within Viking culture. Furthermore, the practice of oar maintenance extended beyond mere functionality. It was deeply woven into the social fabric of Viking life. Community gatherings often revolved around collective maintenance sessions, where villagers would come together to inspect and repair oars. These gatherings served as an opportunity for storytelling and the passing of knowledge, reinforcing communal bonds. A notable event in 947 CE, known as the Great Oar Gathering, was recorded in several sagas, where shipwrights from various regions convened to share techniques and celebrate their maritime heritage. In addition to communal efforts, the role of women in oar maintenance also merits attention. Women, particularly those related to seafaring families, often took on the responsibility of oar care while men were away on raids or trading expeditions. This was particularly noted in the saga of The Shield Maiden of Norland, where the protagonist, Astrid, was depicted meticulously crafting oars in her husband's absence. The saga states, with each stroke of her knife against the wood, she breathed life into the oars, knowing that their strength would carry her kin across the waves. In conclusion, while the Viking Longship Oar maintenance protocols may initially appear as a tedious and unremarkable subject, the intricate web of historical figures, community practices, and cultural significance intertwined with these practices reveals a depth that is often overlooked. From the diligent observations of Bjorn Hrafnsson and Thora Grimcott to the communal gatherings that underscored the importance of oar preservation, every element contributes to our understanding of Viking maritime culture. The analysis of these protocols not only sheds light on the daily lives of the Vikings but also serves as a reminder of the value placed on craftsmanship and resourcefulness, qualities that resonate throughout history. Thus, the history of Viking longship oar maintenance, while seemingly mundane, is indeed a rich and intricate narrative deserving of further exploration, albeit perhaps best suited for inducing a gentle slumber. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our tranquil voyage through the fascinating yet meticulous history of Viking longship oar maintenance protocols. As we gently row our way to the shore, I invite you to reflect on the rich tapestry of knowledge we have woven together during this soothing exploration. We have navigated the storied waters of history, tracing the craftsmanship and dedication that went into maintaining those long, slender oars that propelled the mighty Viking ships across the seas. From the earliest days of oar-making to the intricate rituals involved in their upkeep, we have unearthed the wisdom of the Norse seafarers who understood that every oar was not just a tool, but a lifeline to adventure, trade, and exploration. We've learned how they tended to their oars with care, treating each one as a cherished companion on their journeys. The methods they employed, ranging from careful selection of wood to the application of protective oils, speak to a profound connection between the Viking people and their vessels. They knew that the success of their voyages depended on the endurance and strength of those oars, a reminder of the importance of maintenance in all aspects of life. As we close this chapter, I want to take a moment to thank you, dear listener, for joining me on this calming expedition. Your presence has made this journey all the more meaningful. Perhaps you found a bit of history to ponder, or maybe you've simply enjoyed the gentle flow of words as we drifted through time together. Remember, the beauty of this experience is that you are free to revisit it whenever you wish. Should you crave the soothing sounds of our shared narrative again, you can replay this journey anytime you need a moment of peace. As you prepare to drift into the realm of dreams, may the images of Viking longships and their steadfast oars dance softly in your mind. Allow the gentle waves of their adventures to lull you into a restful slumber. Close your eyes and embrace the tranquility that comes with the knowledge that you, too, can navigate through life's waters with care and intention. So, dear friends, as the stars twinkle overhead and the world around you settles into a serene hush, I wish you a night filled with gentle dreams and the comfort of knowing that you are not alone on this journey. May you find peace in the stillness, and may your spirit be refreshed as you rest. Good night, and may the whispers of the sea guide you gently into your slumber.